Almost everyone treats death as the thing that ruins meaning, so they look away from it. The ancients did the opposite, on purpose, and called it a path to freedom. Here is the question this video sits inside. Why would deliberately remembering that you will die make your life better instead of worse? The answer is stranger than it sounds. Start with the instinct, because almost everyone has it. When the thought of your own death drifts close, something in you flinches and changes the subject. You reach for your phone, you make a plan, you tell yourself there is time. This is not weakness, it is the ordinary human default, and most of us live inside it without ever choosing it. And tucked into that default is a quiet assumption you may never have examined. The assumption is that death is the enemy of meaning, that to think about it clearly is to poison whatever joy you have left, that the kindest thing you can do for a good life is to keep the ending out of sight. Now here is the part that should stop you. A line of ancient thinkers, the Stoics above all, looked at that assumption and rejected it. They did not just tolerate the thought of death, they practiced it deliberately as a discipline, the way you might practice an instrument. They kept their own mortality in front of them on purpose every day and called this not morbid at all, but the path to freedom. Later, the practice would get a fixed Latin name, a phrase you have probably seen carved on a clock or a tomb. We will get to that phrase and to where it actually comes from, because the real story is not what most people assume. But the phrase is the smaller thing. The practice came first, and it rests on a promise that sounds at first like a contradiction. Look straight at the one thing you most want to avoid, and it will give you your life back. The question is simply how that could possibly be true. To test that promise, start with the most famous image attached to it. Picture a Roman triumph. A victorious general rides through the city on a chariot, crowned with laurel, the crowd roaring his name, for one day treated almost like a god. And according to the old story, stationed just behind him stands a figure, often described as a slave, with one job: to lean in through all that glory and remind him that he is mortal. It is a beautiful image, and people love to claim the figure whispered the phrase, Memento Mori. But that is not what the source says. The earliest version we have comes from Tertullian, a Christian writer in Carthage, around the year 197, describing this Roman custom. His Latin runs roughly, "Look behind you, remember that you are a man." Not the tidy formula people quote. The fixed phrase came centuries later. What the attendant supposedly said was simpler and rawer. You are only a man, and you will die. Now set the chariot aside, because the deeper roots are not in one dramatic ceremony. They are in the daily habits of the Stoic philosophers. Epictetus told his students to keep death and exile before their eyes every day, and most of all, death. Seneca, in his letters, urged ordering the mind as if it had already reached the very end, settling the account of your life each day as it closed. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private notebook, to act and speak and think as though you might leave life at any moment. Not a single scare, a practice, repeated. And the obvious question is what they thought it bought them. Here is the mechanism, the actual answer to why it would help. Think about what makes anything precious to you. Almost always, it is scarcity. A thing you could have endlessly, at any time, forever, tends to fade into the background and stop mattering. The Stoic claim is that your life works the same way. It is finite, and that finitude is not a flaw in it. The finitude is exactly what gives it weight. Hold the ending in view, they argued, and two things happen at once. The trivial worries shrink. The hour you have right now stops feeling infinite and starts feeling chosen. Two ideas sit near this. The first is learning to love and accept whatever happens to you, rather than the life you wish you had. A stance later summed up in the phrase, amor fati, the love of one's fate. The second is rehearsing loss in advance, picturing the worst calmly before it arrives so it can never ambush you. What the Stoics called premeditatio malorum. Both feed the same engine. Stop postponing. Settle the account today. Now, one warning, because there is a different Memento Mori people confuse with this one. The medieval Christian version, with its dancing skeletons, its skulls and wilting flowers, remembers death because of judgment and an afterlife waiting on the far side. That is a real tradition, but it is not this one. The Stoic version points nowhere beyond. There is no second life it is pricing in. Death matters, on their reading, precisely because it ends the only life you get. And that ending is what makes this morning worth your full attention. That is the strongest version of the case, and it is about to be attacked. The attack comes from inside the ancient world, from a school that thought the Stoics were solving the wrong problem entirely. Its founder was Epicurus, and he was no Stoic. He ran a rival school with a rival cure for the same fear. The Stoics, remember, keep death vivid in front of you to sharpen your life. Epicurus says, do the opposite. Do not keep it vivid. Reason it away until it stops frightening you at all. His argument, from his letter to Menicius, addressed to a follower of that name, is short and unnervingly tight. Death, he says, is nothing to us. And here is why. Everything good or bad, every pleasure and every pain belongs to experience. But death is the end of all experience. So consider the two states. While you exist, death is not here. And once death is here, you do not exist to meet it. The two never actually overlap. You will never be present at your own death to suffer it. So why, he asks, keep rehearsing a thing you are structurally guaranteed never to encounter? Sit with how directly that cuts against everything in the last chapter. If Epicurus is right, the Stoic dutifully holding his death before his eyes each morning is not gaining clarity. He is manufacturing dread over an event that is, by definition, nothing to him. Both schools want the same prize, freedom from the fear of death. They just disagree completely on how to win it. One says stare at it daily. The other says prove to yourself it was never there. And once you really feel the force of both, you cannot simply wave one away. So which side wins? Honestly, neither, and pretending otherwise would be cheating you. This is a genuine open fork in ancient thought, and it is still open. 23 centuries later, no one has closed it. The Stoic says keep death vivid because scarcity is what makes the moment matter. Epicurus says argue death away because you will never actually meet it. A modern thinker is sometimes read as leaning toward the face it instinct rather than the dissolve it one. In his book Being and Time from 1927, Heidegger argued that an authentic existence comes from squarely confronting your own finitude, rather than fleeing it. He is no Stoic, and he is not running their daily exercise, but on this one reading, his instinct points the same direction. But notice what survives the disagreement, because this is the part to carry out with you. Whichever road you take, the destination is the same. Both are aimed at one freedom. Not consolation about an afterlife, nothing on the far side at all. Just freedom in this life, here, from spending your days on autopilot, from forever deferring the things that matter to some later that may not come. That is the honest reframe. Memento Mori was never a proof that death is harmless. It is not a verdict on dying. It is a practice for living, a way of aiming a finite life at what actually counts. And it returns you to where we began. The thing you keep flinching away from may be the one thing that, looked at squarely, hands you back your own life. The Stoic looks at it, Epicurus reasons it gone. Both, strangely, are trying to wake you up before the time you were never promised quietly runs out. So the question we opened with never gets a tidy answer, and it should not. The thing you keep looking away from is also, it turns out, the thing that can return you to your own life. Remember it the Stoic way, or argue it away the Epicurean way. Either road points at the same freedom, the freedom to stop postponing the life you actually have. Where do you land? Face it or dissolve it? Tell me below. Subscribe and stay curious.